Alright, so my historical figure is Gordon Allport. Gordon Allport was born on November 11th during the year of 1897 in Montezuma, Indiana. Allport was the youngest of 4 brothers and was the son of John Edward and Nellie Edith Allport. Gordon was initially raised in Indiana, but at the age of 6, him and his family eventually moved to Cleveland, Ohio in 1903. At this point, his family really began to establish their roots, especially his father, who was a country doctor and went about his practice of medicine by opening a clinic and hospital within the family's home. Because of Allport's father's profession, Allport was constantly surrounded by patients, nurses, and cluttered medical equipment, and the home environment really played a crucial role on the influence of Allport's future aspirations. Allport himself was a very well-rounded student, given that he graduated second of his class from Glenville High School in 1915, and based off his high scores and academic success in high school, Allport found himself receiving a scholarship to attend Harvard University, where he would then receive and graduate from with a bachelor's degree in economics and philosophy in 1919. Following graduation, Allport began to step into his career field, and he chose to travel to Istanbul, Turkey, where he taught English and sociology at Robert College. But after about a year, Allport decided to return back to Harvard and resume his education, leading to his eventual completion of a master's in psychology in 1921, and then his PhD in psychology in 1922. Allport's ongoing academic success was obviously observable, which led to Allport being awarded the Sheldon Traveling Fellowship through Harvard, providing Allport with the opportunity to study at the Gestalt School in Berlin, in Hamburg, in Germany during his first year, and to study at Cambridge University in Cambridge, England during his second year of the fellowship. After Allport's fellowship had come to a close, Allport returned to Harvard for a third time, but not for his own academic interests, but rather to serve as an instructor of psychology, where he taught personality, its psychological and social aspects, from 1924 to 1926. However, yet again, Allport chose to change directions and took on the position at Dartmouth College, where he taught an introductory social psychology and personality course for 4 years. But as you may have guessed, Allport once again returned to Harvard, where he was instated as a member of the university's faculty for the remaining duration of his career, which was from 1930 to 1967. During his time at Harvard, Allport established Harvard's sociology department and also served as the editor and fellow of the renowned Journal of Abnormal and Social Psychology. Allport also eventually became the president of the American Psychological Association in 1939, was chosen to be the president of the Eastern Psychological Association in 1943, and was held the role as the president of the Society for the Psychological Study of Social Issues in 1944. During the peak of his career, Allport eventually published his third book, known as The Individual and His Religion, his fourth publication, The Nature of Prejudice, in 1954, and his fifth publication, Becoming, Basic Considerations for Psychology of Personality, in 1955. Then after, Allport also received the prestigious Gold Medal Award by the American Psychological Foundation in 1963, which was then preceded by the APA's Distinguished Scientific Contribution Award in 1964. In terms of Allport's work, Allport is noted as the distinguished founder and introducer of personality psychology as its own unique field of study. So Allport initially defined personality as the dynamic organization within the individual of those psychophysical systems that determine his unique adjustments to his environment. However, Allport soon revised his initial definition of personality by adjusting the phrase unique adjustments to his environment to the statement of characteristic behavior and thought. His reasoning behind his revision was due to his acknowledgement of human intellect, but more specifically the fact that humans both adjust and reflect to their environments. Allport also founded what is referred to as the trait theory of personality. So to further explain, Allport viewed traits as the combination of readiness and a determining tendency. Research that Allport conducted in relation to this was surrounding his interest in distinguishing the key differences between traits as compared to past concepts like habits, attitudes, needs, and instincts. This was done in the manner of examining the Webster's New International Dictionary, which was published in 1952, for the purpose of identifying words that fell within the lines of distinctive and personal behavior. After concluding his examination, Allport defined traits as a generalized and focalized neuropsychic system that has the capacity to make various stimuli functionally equivalent and to commence and guide equivalent forms of adaptive and expressive behavior. So Allport's conclusion truly helped establish the clear differences between what is defined as individual traits and common traits. Another area of interest for Allport was in the distinction of ideographic and nomothetic approaches of studying psychology. So, although Allport did not disregard nomothetic orientations in his research, he did argue that because nomothetic approaches rely on experiments and statistical analysis, that nomothetic approaches in psychology could neglect the influence of unique, complex individual experiences. Because of this, Allport found himself aligning more with the principles of ideographic approaches when studying the personality of psychology. But Allport did acknowledge the fact that ideographic approaches can cause, condition, and conflict for clinical and experimental psychologists, and suggested that these professionals should examine and measure common traits as compared to individual traits. Allport also expanded prior knowledge about the maturation of personality. So, for example, Allport himself argued that the uniqueness, self-continuing, and evolving systems of personality begin to form after elements of human nature have interacted with the self. This argument was based off Allport's belief that newborn infants were born and sustain no personality until the point at which they experience the world, and then are given the chance to develop and adjust to their environments. Allport suggested that infants must first differentiate between efficient and adaptive patterns of behavior, and that over time as they develop, they would then begin to integrate such behaviors in specified actions, while also maturing and learning how their individual experiences are connected to their environments, and vice versa. Because of his research, Allport did not believe that there was a direct link between maturation and development of personality, but rather that maturation cues inherited features of individuals and further indirectly influences personality. Allport also reached a point in his career where he began interested in distinguishing the series of stages that occur as the sense of self develops over time. Allport pinpointed 7 stages that provide individuals with a sense of self-relevance, or a sense of what we refer to ourselves as me, or I. Allport also coined a term referred to as proprium, which was used to describe the idea that each individual has a unique personality, but that an individual's personality is not part of what is constituted as the definition of what it is to be a person. Further research conducted by Allport was also driven in his interest in motivation. Allport really remained opposed to pre-existing perspectives on motivation, and instead of agreeing with the fact that biological drives and learned motives and concepts of homeostasis and maintenance are important, he believed that they were impartial when considering human motivation. Considering this, Allport coined a term referred to as functional autonomy, which suggests that human motivation does not solely consist on the maintenance of equilibrium and or the satisfaction of basic level biological urges, but rather that human motivation is aimed in the direction of growth. Overall, when considering the magnitude of Allport's research and proposed perspectives on the realms of psychology, his influence within both just personal psychology and standard psychology is still present today. However, when considering the vast amount of changes and advancements that we have made in both the field of psychology and personality psychology, Allport's theories and terms are applied much less as they were nowadays. So, for example, functional autonomy, the term coined by Allport, is scarcely applied in current research. This has been suggested to be related to the decline in prominence of psychoanalysis and SR theories due to their lack of inspiration and active theoretical attention by modern researchers. In terms of Allport's trait theory of personality, his initial speculations and proposals related to the distinguishment of the difference between traits compared to similar concepts have been greatly expanded on over time. So, for example, Raymond Cattell went on to apply precise scientific and statistical analysis when approaching Allport's elementary personality trait suggestions. This new approach led to Cattell to develop the 16PF personality questionnaire. And then Cattell's 16PF personality questionnaire has been then described as the forerunner of the research that was constructed and applied for the eventual foundation of the current and highly implemented 5-factor trait model. The 5-factor model was proposed by Robert McRae and Paul Costa Jr. and is composed of 5 dimensions of personality used to assess and describe adult individuals. So, at the end of the day, Allport's research and the devotion to his career made a considerable impact on psychology and personality psychology, that which successors and future researchers have heavily benefited from in continued research within this area of discussion. And although not all of Allport's suggestions and perspectives are commonly applied in practices and theories in the present day, there is considerable proof that demonstrates how Allport's work is rooted in modernized approaches when examining and assessing personality. And unfortunately, on October 9th of 1967, Allport did pass at the age of 68 of lung cancer in Cambridge, Massachusetts, but his impact still lives on today.